Hello, this is David, other guy over here. On one of my hikes with my wingman Tsotsi down here at the bottom. Hey Tsots. I decided to have a little break from the farm. It's always one of those funny things where people always comment on the farm life, how peaceful and how beautiful, and what a way to switch off. And it is. I'm not going to deny that. But how often do I get to? That's the difference. And that's because the farm life is a busy life. If you're working with nature, nature doesn't wait for anyone. The seasons keep rolling on, and it forces you to, if you're committed to what you're doing on the farm, there's no lounging about. You have to stay on top of things. You need to make sure that when the seasons are arriving, that whatever you're doing is ready, set and go. So there's very little time to just sit down and do nothing. And even then, the problem with that is me in particular, the Virgo in me, the INFJT. If I try to sit down and switch off, I can't. And the reason why is because I'm always thinking, gosh, okay, why don't I quickly do this? At least that's done. Let me go and turn this on. And then I go down my rabbit holes of just getting things done. So to remove myself from the farm for a little hike and take some time away from the farm, there's nothing I can do on the farm. I can't do anything because I'm not there. And when there's quiet times, I really do try to embrace the farm as best as I can. The dogs love it. They know that farm back to front, and they love it, and they've got all the space they need. And I try to enjoy that with them. But from time to time, I need to stop the brain, the farmer's brain, from acting out in terms of doing stuff. So being away from the farm, if I'm not there, I can't do anything. Tsots, where are you gone? Oh, there he is. So today I'm hiking with Tsotsi, one dog. And the reason why I'm hiking with him because it's a new hike, and I don't like taking all four jacks, especially Zulu, being the youngest, the most curious, on a hike I've not been on, and scrutinized myself. So I take Tsotsi. He's an extremely intelligent dog, extremely loyal. I love that dog so much, and I trust him. Not that I don't trust the others, that it's just their recall and their discipline is nowhere near what Tsotsi has. Tsotsi's always very watchful as well. He's almost got a level of intelligence, emotional intelligence, that the others don't have. But I love them all, I absolutely do. So now I've done this hike, I like it, it's a beautiful hike. I think next time I'll bring the other dogs with me. So anyway, I've started a new hub. There's a demand in one of the northern suburbs of Johannesburg, and I spoke to the lady, and they want this food to table service from the farm, farm to table service from the farm. They want the organic farming methods that go into the things I grow. So there is a demand, and from what I'm hearing, a big demand. But not only that, a little curveball's been thrown. It's hard enough just being on the other side of this camera talking to a phone, where there's no reciprocity, no comeback, no engagement, just waffling. And the lady turned around and said, I'd love you to do a talk to the community. I don't know how big this community is. I'm not much of a public speaker. In fact, I get very nervous for stuff like that. I'm also but I didn't hesitate to say no. I didn't feel like I was being forced into something I didn't want to do. And I think there's a part of me that has absolute confidence in everything that I do on the farm, that wants to share that. What do I do? Okay, I've got, so I don't know if you guys can read it, emergency exit, or do I continue? I continue, of course. Hey, Tsots. So there's a part of me that just instantly wanted to grab the bull by the horns and say, yes, I will speak. And now as I've been walking, I've been contemplating about the type of things I talk about. I mean, I can go off on tangents. And I think I can talk about avos till I'm blue in the face. But I feel like I have an obligation to people to help educate them on nourishing their bodies. And I know you got all these doctors on YouTube and Facebook, and they got followers, and a lot of the stuff that they say really is anti-supermarket, anti-corporate globalization, and I have an affinity with that. I resonate with that, but I guess I want to tell it from my context. And so I want to, I'm a type 1 diabetic. All these doctors on YouTube, all they ever do is generalize diabetes. They don't, and when they don't generalize, they'll elaborate on type 2. So I feel like there's a big part of society that's excluded from these doctors because they don't want to touch on the subject. I understand why. Because the things I do initially were very risky. The fasting aspect. To get past that fasting aspect on my own, without going to a fasting clinic, it takes knowledge to get you through that. And that knowledge is what I want to impart. I want to talk about the life of a type 1, because I honestly feel like if people can appreciate what type 1 diabetics have to do, and when I say have to do, they have to think before they eat. Not think before they speak, think before they eat. And that's where I think the key point comes in. Think before you eat. And I want to elaborate on how easy it is to just be on autopilot mode and think that you're eating healthy, not having asked the right questions, and yet still battle. So I want people to think before they eat. I want to tie it in with the organic farming. I want them to understand how organic farming makes your food taste different. I want to go into the science of that, because there is a science to it. And I want to explain to them that if you can listen to a type 1 diabetic, you don't need to talk to any other nutritional therapist. Type 1 diabetics understand every reaction the body has when it comes to food. So we are very conscious of food, very thoughtful of food. Those that are responsible. I think I've lost my way. No, I haven't. We're very thoughtful of what we eat. Like I said, those that are responsible. You get those that aren't, and they will pay the consequences. It's inevitable. They are 8 times more likely to die of the top 10 leading causes of death in this world because of bad management of their sugar levels. Now what I've gone through is I go through fasting. There's all of it. There's a whole trend about fasting, and a lot of it is right, but there's a lot of science to how that works, and it's not as easy as you think, and people expect the results that everyone talks about on these trending videos about fasting and 72-hour prolonged fast and 40-day fast and ketosis and keto diets. Every person's body is different and react differently. There's 72 variables that affect the blood sugars of a type 1 diabetic. Can you believe that? 72 that we've always got to think about. It can be something like I'm doing now, a hike will drop my blood sugars. The heat will drop my blood sugars. Stress levels can push my blood sugars up. The time I eat can affect my blood sugar levels. The type of carbohydrate, the amount of insulin, the type of activity, the type of drinks you have. If you're sick, all these things affect blood sugar levels. And us as diabetics have to manage that manually. Those that aren't, the body does that for them, and that's why they can eat without thinking. And that's where all the problems come. 100 years ago, you didn't have all the diseases and the causes of death that we're getting now. Didn't have it. What happened over 100 years ago? Great Depression, tin foods, corporate globalization, all of that. And they're all tied together. I could go down conspiracy theories, which in all fairness do make total sense. Pharmaceutical companies, they don't care about you. They're not there to. They're a business. They need to make profit. They need investors to make money. They need investors' money to keep growing. They need you to be sick. How do they make you sick? Well, let's exclude nutritional education in the curriculums that are there at schools. Let's not teach children how to eat correctly. Let's not teach children about a healthy mindset and good mental health. Let's not teach them about financial literacy so that they can break free from being a wage slave and all of that's all tied in together. So, and one way I take control of my life, and where other people can as well, is to ask the right questions. People just regurgitate the echoes of the things they hear, making themselves feel as if they're intelligent and smart, and all they've done is regurgitate an echo of something they've heard and whatnot. And I'm sorry, the book I'm writing, Who Are You, almost finished, is about authenticity. And now to get that authenticity, you need to ask the right questions. People don't have a curious mind anymore. They just accept things for what they are, for what they see, for what they hear. And that there is where you become a sheep. And you can become a sheep in many different ways. Whether it be how you feed your body, your political stand, your religious views. So many ways anyway. And when I think about it, it's all tied in together. And so one of the ways of being a black sheep, to break away from that, take control of your diet, what you feed your body. I always say to people that, what was I going to say? Sorry, there's just rocks over here. I lost my train of thoughts there. Feed your body, They'll come back to me, I hope. Take control of the way you want to nourish your body. Our body's your body. Anyone listening to this, separate your mind from your body, because we live our lives through our minds, which is fine. That's what it's there for, survival. But we forget that the mind and the body should be treated differently. The body needs to be given the reward, the nutrition that it deserves for getting your body as far as it has. I'm 40 years of age. My body's kept me going for 40 years. I think it deserves a bit of respect. We're so focused on our facades, our masks that we wear, like I call it in my book, the circus of masks, that we forget to humble ourselves, show humility, apologize, tuck the pride away. Life is so much better, more organic that way. And so I think by feeding our bodies correctly, asking the right questions, and when I say ask the right questions, ask what's going into your food. I went to the market yesterday. I was selling my avos as usual. and some lady who's another vendor there, she's like, come over here, you know, let me tell you about our boerewors. For those of you who don't know what boerewors is, it's almost like a spicy sausage. Not spicy, but of course sausages are sausages. You can put so many flavors into it. And I'm like, okay, all right, you tell me. All right, so she's telling me about the flavors. Okay, well then I'm gonna get ready because I ask questions. So what do you put into your boerewors, the sausage? Explain to me. Oh, there's minced meat or meat. There's coriander and some spices, and I say, okay, well that's great, I know that. But can you tell me about your preservatives, your thickeners, your flavor enhancers? Can you tell me about those? Tell me what's in there. Blank. Now, if someone asks me, if there's a person like myself asking me about avos, about what I do on the farm, I'll answer them. In every way or form, I'll answer them. It's my responsibility as a producer to know my product and what I'm selling. And I have to also respect that there's people out there like myself who take what they put into their bodies very seriously, because it is serious. You know why I say it's serious? How many of you lost someone to cancer, lost it to a heart attack, lost them to some debilitating disease, Alzheimer's? Quite an important subject, right? And a lot of those things, how do they happen? It's what we put in our bodies. It's how we exercise our bodies. Alright, I'll get a duck down here. Ooh. So, what do we put in our bodies? I think it's important, just as it is important to have that feeling of losing someone that you really care about because of the lies that supermarkets, food engineers, corporates lie to all of us to make us think that what we're eating is correct. It's not. I don't care about the keto diet, I don't care about Atkins diet, I don't care about whatever diet anyone's on. It's all a load of horse shit in my eyes. What I care about is thinking with common sense. What's common sense? Well, let's think about it. How did people eat 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago? Was there anything packaged in boxes? Was there anything with all these chemicals that are all artificial, all synthetic? It's made by humans. It's not made by nature. There wasn't any of that there. Yeah, people died younger back in those days, but because that'd take much more risk in life to get what they needed. There were wars. Oh, look at this, Tsotsi, you're a poser. You're a champ. What a beautiful shot. Hey, Tsotsi, what do we have here? What a view. I can see where we're going. Hey, Tsotsi, please don't fall off. I've told everyone how intelligent you are, eh? Alright. So, let me sit down for a minute. I have the view behind me. Sorry about you can't see my eyes. Sun's right in front of me. So yeah, I really do think that talking to people about food, it's about asking the right questions. Why am I getting sick? How can I prevent this in the future? You know, sadly, people ask these questions once they are sick, and it's why not do prevention? Prevention's better than cure, as they say. And all you're doing is curing yourself with medicine, which is more poison. It has knock-on effects. That stuff. It has inflammatory responses. You know, every time there's an inflammatory response, your white blood cells are going down there to fight a war. But there's residuals to war. There's damage. Even though the good guys go down there and most times do the job and win the battle, there's residual damage that's left over because there's that little war. And that's what happens in our bodies. Scar tissue and inflammation. It's a continuous battle because of the way we feed ourselves. And people become very defensive over food. It's pretty much like politics and religion. And sadly it all ties down to one thing, which is ego. No one is willing to be convinced otherwise. I don't want to convince anyone else, but I'd like to know that deep down in your mind, that despite there might being a mask or an ego, that there is actually some something's clicking from the common sense side of the brain. But I know sometimes pride is too thick, the ego is too strong, the mask, the facade's too important to accept that sometimes you're wrong, or you've heard the wrong thing, and it's okay to let go of what you've heard of. But just try to think of the body. It's an organism like my avos, like the lychees, like the mangoes. And you feed them correctly, they flourish, they're nutrient dense, they can go for a long time. We are much like them. We're an organism, and the way we feed ourselves, we've got a brain, we've got a conscience, and we should use that to our advantage. And what's the best way to use that to our advantage? Ask the right questions. Don't trust supermarkets, don't trust things just because they've got fancy packaging and it looks premium and it looks healthy. Everything in this world's advertising, and it's I love being on the farm, because I get to see what I do to the farm and trees. And because of doing a video like this, you can clearly see that I have an intention. Everything is intentional, what I do on the farm, and it's intentional in the sense that I can live a life knowing what I'm eating. I don't trust shops, I don't trust people, I don't, what's the saying that I heard in England while I was there? Everyone's a twat until they prove otherwise. And sadly, society has given them that, those credentials. But every now and then you meet like-minded people who've got nature at their core, and they've got the authenticity to ask the right questions and the humbleness to accept when they're wrong. I think working on the farm with my dogs, I get a lot of time to reflect with nature and the doggos. And really it is about keeping it simple. Tsots, where are you going? I'm sitting on a rock. We're not far. I'm gonna go down there. Anyway, so we get going. Tsotsi wants to go. He's missing his pals. I'd love to get a nice picture of me and Tsotsi over here. That's alright. Alright, Tsotsi, come on boy, let's go. So yeah, I think in a nutshell, I think that's what I'm going to do. Is I want to speak to people about this stuff, maybe not as provocatively and as controversially as maybe I've done here. That's okay. I just have a very strong moral fiber when it comes to nutrition. I can't stand lies. I can't stand people who can't explain their own product and know their own product, yet expect us to spend money and eat the poison. I've got no time, I've got no respect for those people. So, but then, do I blame them? They've not asked the right questions. I always believe, have a curious mind. A curious mind will always lead you to the right questions. And right now we've got AI on our side. So we've got, I know, it's such a dubious piece of technology, but you have to understand, and I use it all the time, we've never in the history of the world had so much knowledge at our disposal. And if you've got a curious mindset like I do, I'm going to have a million questions. I'm going to speak to people about all this stuff. I'll go into the avos, I'll explain the physiology and the biology of avos. I'll explain the races. I'll explain about the dichogamy, the male and female aspects of the trees, the soil types, the varieties. I don't know all the varieties, there's over 1,000, but I'm going to stick to what I know. And I'm confident in what I know. Why? I asked the right questions when I learned to go down this journey about regenerating a farm back to its former glory, and I wanted to do it the Virgo way, meticulously, analytically, and I wanted to ask the right questions to make sure I get the right answers and then cross-reference all of that. So that's how I'm going to do it. That's how I'm going to roll with it. I don't know how it's going to go. I'm probably going to be quite nervous. I'm probably going to be quite all over the place. But I'm just going to let it roll off the tongue. If I go off on a tangent, so be it. Whatever. There'll be people who want to hear it, and there'll be people that might be thinking that, they've controversial or this, that, and the other. I don't know. Sometimes it just needs to be said for what it is. Why beat around the truth? I'm no doctor. I understand nutrition. I've got AI. I can back fact check myself, make sure that information I'm dispelling and I'm learning is accurate as it can be. So I'm going to do that. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of older folk there that believe in old wives' tales. I might burst a few bubbles, but I want people to understand where their food comes from. And if they're supporting my farm, me and the dogs will support them with as good information as we can give, with as good food as we can produce, and being in line with how Mother Nature intended food to be used and consumed. I wonder how I'm going to do. Maybe if this video is anything to go by, judge me on the video. Don't worry, I won't hurt my feelings. But in any case, it's from a very passionate place, all of this. Look at that, I'm getting orders already. I can see it on my phone. So let me round this up. I'm the Avo guy. My name is David. I care about food. I care about how it's produced. I care about what I put in my body. So should you. So let me and Tsotsi. I'm out. Tsotsi, we're on our way out, aren't we? What's the thing? Like, subscribe, comment below, hit the buttons, whatever. But anyway, that's my rant over. Let me know how I did. Maybe controversial, maybe stupid, maybe cringe. Do I give a shit? Not really. Well, I do, because I want to know what you guys have to say. But if there's anyone who's going to be rude, you're not going to hurt my feelings. In any case, yo, I almost saw my ass there. So yeah, like, share, comment, subscribe, appreciate it. Follow the days in the life of this Muppet behind the camera and his crazy jackpack. We care about good things that I'm sure we all actually care about. It's about community, and it's about being humble. Anyway, I'm out. Have a guy out. Have a cracking Sunday.